Hey everyone, it's Brooke, and I'm here to do my February wrap-up part 2. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk to you about is not only my favorite read of February, but probably my favorite read of the year so far. I would be surprised if it doesn't end up on my top reads of 2016 list, which is great because I feel like this might be the only book I feel this strongly about I've read this far, which is kind of a bummer because I want to feel this way about every book I read, but of course I don't. And I am talking about Jacqueline Woodson's Brown Girl Dreaming. This book is phenomenal. It absolutely deserves all of these accolades. It is like nonfiction, really. It's Jacqueline Woodson and kind of a memoir told through middle grade verse. And she tackles, what it was like growing up African American in like the 60s, moving from Ohio to the South, to South Carolina in particular, when, the civil rights movement and things were going on. Then she moves to Brooklyn with her family, and you get such a great sense of all of these places, about her life, about growing up a Jehovah's Witness, growing up with her siblings and her extended family, and it's just such a great book, and she can write the hell out of a sentence. The imagery in this is gorgeous. I put a passage I really loved on Instagram. Just it felt magical when I sat down to read it, and cannot recommend this any higher. I think everyone should read this, just if for nothing else than the really gorgeous prose, and she is such a talented writer. I also jumped on the Neapolitan novels bandwagon, the Ferrante Fever, so to speak. I had previously read The Days of Abandonment last year, which is one of my favorite books of the year, so I knew that she was an author I was going to explore further. And so I did pick up My Brilliant Friend in February and read it fairly quickly, despite, it's not really that long, it's like 330 pages, but I read it really quickly because it's a slow novel. This is completely character driven. It's not about, it is about what happens in their lives, but it is really just about kind of the ways those things that happen in their lives shape the characters. It all comes back to the characters. We follow two friends, Elena and Lila, I don't know exactly how she would pronounce it, as they are growing up. Both of them are poor. They live in Naples, Italy, and they have sort of this adversarial friendship, almost to the sense that it's not even like they're friends so much as sisters and family, and kind of the ways that's a much deeper relationship, the ways you can kind of get away with being more hurtful to each other. And there's so many really excellently explored themes. Female bodies is something that gets touched on a lot here. Power. I think power is probably, for me, the most interesting theme explored here, and female power and the lack of female power. I just really loved it a lot. I actually felt quite a personal connection to this, as my in real life best friend and I have known each other since we were about 8 or 9, same kind of age where they start, and we have always had this really deep connection, and we've always sort of had an adversarial connection as well. And it felt so much like, emotionally at least, like that relationship that I had with her growing up. So it was slow, and I think the middle was a little bit ploddingly paced, but overall this was a really fantastic read. And then I read, for the underhyped read-a-thon, Kelly Luce's 3 scenarios in which Hana Sasaki grows a tail. This is short stories, really short, because, there's just not much to this book to begin with. That might have been the only real problem I had with this, is that I would have liked more. There were a couple of stories in here that I think were the perfect length and were really beautiful, but the rest of them I really sort of wanted a little bit more development out of. So, yeah, I think in a little bit of a longer form, I would really appreciate Kelly Luce a little bit more. I think she is a fantastic writer. I mean, she can also really write the shit out of a sentence. So much really great imagery, and the ideas are great. I really love how most of the stories are very realistic, but there, every once in a while there is just this sort of odd story, like a tale, or the first story, Mrs. Yamada's toaster, where, you know, there's a toaster, her toaster she thinks can predict how someone's going to die. So there are certain sort of a little bit fantastical elements in here. I really like the ways it's sort of drenched in Japanese culture. A lot of the stories kind of have this sort of mythological or like legend-like feel to them. So if you like short stories, quirky short story collections, I would recommend this. It didn't blow me away, but it was a very enjoyable read and a really fantastic read for a readathon. And then finally, the last comic trade paperback I read was The Wicked and the Divine, Volume 3, Commercial Suicide. This gets a lot of mixed reviews among Wicked and Divine fans. Unlike the first two volumes, Jamie McKelvey's only draws one of the issues in this. The rest of them are guest artists, and that really has put some people off, I think. I am a lot more forgiving with that because I understand that the artists drawing a monthly book is really very, very hard and stressful physically for an artist, so they take breaks a lot of the time, and they do it in different ways. Jamie McKelvey kind of took off for most of this volume and this story arc, and so each issue has a different guest artist, and I liked that. It actually felt like it added a bit more to the story sometimes, because these are also, they're not within the kind of normal narrative of the Wicked and the Divine. I mean, they are, but they almost feel like individual short stories focusing on different gods and kind of like the human they were before. And so the different artists kind of highlight the sort of short story narratives going on within this, I thought, pretty well. And I am biased because Leila Del Duca draws an issue, and Leila Del Duca is one of my favorite comic book artists, so I'm always happy to see her. I do think, though, that with the alternating artists and the fact that we no longer have Laura as our narrator, that this volume does lack a cohesion that the first two had, and so I think in comparison, it can fall short of the first two. I think the cliffhanger endings that we're so accustomed to wasn't so much, it just wasn't here. I mean, there was a progressive ending in the sense that it moves the story forward and there's something to think about going forward, but it wasn't the shocker that wanted to left us with. And I did miss Laura as kind of our eyes and ears, so to speak. But I will say, despite the fact that I gave this 3 stars versus the first 2 volumes 4 stars, that I think issue number 13 in this is maybe the best Wicked and Divine issue ever. I think the story it tells about celebrity and social media and the ways that we internet bully and the ways we think we own celebrities and people who are famous, I think it was so well done that I think in a lot of ways this volume, in my opinion, is worth reading just for that issue. So yeah, I think that this might be, compared to the other volumes, the weakest link. I agree with that, but at the same time, I think it's setting up for a really exciting volume 4. Alright guys, that's my February reading completely wrapped and done. I will see you guys later.